Welcome to the AWS with NeuralSeek Learning Lab, hosted by the team at Cerebral Blue. Our goal is to provide you with the essential knowledge for provisioning NeuralSeek and integrating it seamlessly with both an AWS Kendra Index instance and an AWS Lex virtual agent. By leveraging the combined power of NeuralSeek and AWS's pioneering technology, prepare to enhance your technical expertise and optimize customer engagement strategies. We have a commitment to transparency and want to disclaim that participants are to come prepared with the necessary resources to fully engage in the practical exercises. We recommend having an active instance of NeuralSeek paper answer subscription. Our team will provide credentials for AWS Kendra and AWS Lex prior to the lab. We encourage participants to take advantage of the free trials and subscriptions available, but it is the responsibility of each participant to understand and manage the associated costs related to the use of NeuralSeek and any other integrated services within their AWS Marketplace environment. Kindly ensure that all necessary resources are set up and accessible prior to beginning the Learning Lab for a seamless and enriching experience. If you would like to connect with our technical team on a 15-minute call to provide any of the listed resources, please schedule utilizing our Calendly scheduler or emailing general@cerebralblue.com.
Hello, everybody. Starting to get attendees to join. Jordan, I do see you in the audience. I'm going to promote you over to be one of the panelists. So Jordan, just anticipate that. RJ, I also see you. So RJ, I know that you are the one who is answering questions today. So RJ, you should also get promoted to a panelist. So I'm setting that one up as well. And then I am looking in the chat. So let's make sure that we can have all of our participants. Go ahead and, while we're just really getting started today, tell us where you're from. Tell us your weather. Honestly, I have just had weather on the brain. So we have finally had a sunny day here. So I don't know if anybody else is getting a sunny day or if somebody else is still stuck in the rain and snow. So go ahead, tell us your weather, tell us where you're from. We're just going to wait a few minutes to make sure that we have all of our planned participants joining today. And then I will turn it over to Jordan once we have everybody here. She will be our developer taking us through the Learning Lab today. And then we have RJ on the call as well. And RJ will be actively working through the chat and answering questions. So he is on top of our Q&A. If you have any questions in there, I'm looking at my participant list, so I'm just calling out someone's name who I'm familiar with. But Bob, could you just put something in the chat? I just need to have a quick confirmation that it's working. It's raining cats and dogs in New Jersey. That's what we know from Bob. RJ, he's gotten some rain in Ohio as well. So that sounds like the weather theme for the day. Some rain and sunny over here. So Jordan, how about you? What's your weather like over there?
It's not rainy yet, but it is cloudy and very cold. I'm in Pennsylvania right now.
Oh, nice, Jordan. You got that Pennsylvania over there with those clouds just looming.
It is. It is.
Well, that seems like a pretty good one over there. So Jordan, I'm just going to do a quick check. Jordan, is there anything that you need from me technically before you're ready to start setup?
I don't believe so. I think I am all good to go.
Okay, Jordan. Well, I am just conscious of the time. We are 3 minutes after, Jordan. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to you. I'd love for you to introduce yourself first. And then Jordan, let's have you get us started.
All right. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jordan. I'm part of the NeuralSeek team here. And if you give me one moment, I will share my screens and we can get started. All right. So, like I said, I'm Jordan, and today I will be walking us through the setup, configuration, and some different features of NeuralSeek within an AWS environment. We're going to be following the AWS Learning Lab guide, and it can be found at labs.neuralseek.com. And just as a note today, you won't need to be bringing an Amazon Kendra instance with you. We have already provisioned one and did a web scrape of our own documentation in order to save us some time here today. One moment. All right, so we will be looking at two different modules. Starting with module 1, a NeuralSeek, no code required. We're going to be looking at how to set up NeuralSeek and learn how to effectively configure it with a knowledge base and a virtual agent. And then within module 2, we'll be looking at some more advanced configurations and features within NeuralSeek. So getting started, I'm going to launch module 1.1 of my Learning Lab guide and then log into my AWS console here. I apologize. For my technical difficulties. Okay, great. So I have pulled up my console here, and the first steps is to get NeuralSeek provisioned. So on the left side here, within our AWS Marketplace subscriptions, that's where we're going to navigate to. And then we're going to click Discover Products on our sidebar menu. And then within the search, we're just going to search for NeuralSeek. And you will see two different instances of NeuralSeek. There's the regular one. So if you do not have access to your own large language model, you may choose this first one, which is, it uses our provided curated LLM. And we're going to go with that option for the lab. But if you did come prepared with your own necessary keys and regions for your own large language model, then feel free to choose that BYO LLM module. But we're going to go with our first NeuralSeek here. And then so after you've selected that product, you can click View Purchase Options in the top. And your screen might look a little bit different from mine. You can review some of the purchase options, and then there will be somewhat in this vicinity a subscribe button. So when you're ready to click that subscribe button, please do, and then your screen will look similar to mine. And please note that these NeuralSeek subscriptions, when they're created, a billing will incur and cost will incur as they're used. Running through the lab verbatim, the cost came out to be $1 or so, but note that that price might increase if you end up playing around a bit more with the instance after the lab. Our lab guide does offer directions at the end on how to deprovision these instances as well to not like incur extra additional costs, but we will go over that. So we're going to click set up our account. I apologize. When I select the correct NeuralSeek option, we're going to click this blue set up your account in the top corner. And this launches us to our instance control page. So this is the page where we'll create users and create instances, so that way we can access NeuralSeek. You can see I have quite a few users and instances on my page currently. Yours might be blank, but it is very simple. So first thing we need to do is create a user. We're going to enter a valid email address. Any email address will work. So I'm just going to go ahead and type that in to the add user prompt and then click that plus button. And please note that this generated password, it will go away once we exit this screen. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that for later use. And we can see down here among my list of many users is my email, jfrance. And so now we have a user, but we do not have an instance of NeuralSeek for us to use yet. So we're going to go and create that right here in this sidebar as well. Under Create Instance, we want to make sure our region is correct. So we're going to stick with our US West 2 region for the purpose of this lab. And then it's as simple as just clicking this plus button, and we now have a unique generated instance. This is our instance ID. Yours will be the only one that pops up, so it'll be better for ease of navigation. But for me, I have many, so I'm going to rename my instance to something a bit more memorable. So, and I can do that by clicking this writing tool right here and then adding a unique instance name. So for this, I'm just going to name it NeuralSeek Learning Lab. And then click that writing tool again to save my new name. And you can see it is right down here, my new created instance. So now we have a user and we have an instance, but we don't yet have connection. And there's two ways to do this. You can either add the user to the instance or add the instance to the user, but I'm just going to go with the first way. And it's as simple as I find my user and I'm going to click this plus button, which configures user access to the instances. And then for my list, I'm going to select the new instance that I just created and add my user to that. I can close out of this screen, and before we leave, I just want to confirm, my user has access to one instance and my new instance has one user. So now I can confirm connection. And so our next step is to access NeuralSeek's user interface. And we do this simply by clicking on that instance name and a login screen will pop up. So this is where that generated password comes in handy. I'm going to log in with the same email address that I used, and then that unique generated password as well. If you would like, you can change your password to something a bit more memorable using that forgot password link. But for the purpose of the lab, I'm just going to click continue. And this will bring us to NeuralSeek. So we have now established, we're now established and ready to connect and explore this home journey that NeuralSeek walks us through when we first log in. And that also concludes module 1.1 of our Learning Lab guide. So we're going to move on to module 1.2 here, setting up NeuralSeek, and I'm going to walk us through this home journey. So getting started, we want to go ahead and add a company name. So the company name is important because it focuses our user questions based on our corporate data. So our knowledge base that we're going to be connecting to today is loaded with NeuralSeek documentation. So for best results for our lab, we're just going to choose NeuralSeek as our company name. And then next on our screen, we're going to select our output language. I'm going to go with English for this example. It's what our corporate knowledge base or our corporate documentation is written in. So as a note, it is best to match the language of your knowledge base and the questions that will be asked. But NeuralSeek is able to translate between many languages. And then finally on this page, we're going to select our use case for our NeuralSeek instance. And here we're basically asking, will this instance of NeuralSeek be used internally within your org, or is it more external and customer facing? And we use this information to pre-tune safety parameters for you. So for the purpose of this lab, we're just going to select internal because we don't need some of those guardrails set up just for our testing purposes. And then to save all of our input, we're just going to click next. And this brings us to our next screen, which is the data screen. And here's where we're going to configure our knowledge base. So I'm going to go ahead and select Kendra from the drop-down menu as our knowledge base type and leave English as our knowledge base language. And then I'm going to pause for a moment and allow everyone the opportunity to input some access key information. These were provided in a LinkedIn message to you in a PDF of our PowerPoint before the start of the lab, but I'm also going to show them here on the screen for ease of access. One moment. Copying this over. Our region is US West 2. Our Kendra index ID is as follows. And also as a note, our lab guide does have information on how to provision these access keys and locate them if you're interested and in connecting your own Kendra index as well. But it does take a bit of time, which is why we had provisioned one here ahead of time. So then I'm going to click this test button before we continue, and we want to confirm with the green check mark that our connection is good. And then before moving on, I'm just going to click next. Great. So at this point, the next step would be configuring a large language model. If you had chose that BYO LLM NeuralSeek plan, then please follow the additional information guide on our Learning Lab documentation. It shows you how to configure that. But if you're following along with us here right now, then our next step is actually the Organize page. So continuing on, we are not going to be utilizing much of this category option that's available for us, but just for your reference, this feature allows for automatic intent categorization. You're able to describe a category with natural language, and then we work to automatically organize user questions into those different categories. A good example that we had mentioned in our last lab was if you say your documentation set up around like hardware store, so you want to add a category about power tools, you're able to list that with natural language, and then any questions that come in relating to those or hitting those categories, we automatically categorize them for you there. But we're not going to be utilizing that feature here for the lab. We are going to be choosing our virtual agent framework, however. So from the drop-down menu, we're going to select that AWS Lex v2, and then just leave the embedded links into returned responses disabled. It's just not necessary for the purpose of our lab. And then we click next to save our options. And this brings us to the tuning screen. Here, it allows us to tune for our data. So we're going to select from the first option, the larger input block, just because it best matches our source documentation, important phrases surrounded by many lines of text. The second option, important phrases surrounded by 1 or 2 relevant lines of information. Depending on your corporate data, you might choose this option. Say you have more focused data like FAQs, that's where that will come in handy. But for our sake, we're just going to go ahead with that larger input block. The second option here is telling us how much information we want to give to the LLM. So we do want to give lots of information to the LLM and then give it leeway to decide that answer. The second option here, it allows us to limit some of our documentation that we can send to the LLM. For the purpose of the lab, we'll stick with that top option. And then our final option here is choosing our data currency. So all of our documents are current and relevant. We're going to stick with that option. The second one describes data that might be more outdated or have some irrelevant information. And that could be useful if your source data is blog posts, for example. And when you select that option, it lets NeuralSeek know to deprioritize those outdated sources and prioritize more relevant material for answer generation. But for our lab, we're just going to stick with that top option. And then we will click next to save our answers. And that brings us to our final screen of the home journey, and NeuralSeek is ready to begin seeking. These features listed here take some time to process, so I'm not going to delve too deep into them. There is an additional information tab on our lab guide that goes over each of these as well. But just for your reference, this auto-generate questions feature, it helps you to quickly bootstrap your project. So it generates a list of questions and that users are predicted to ask about our knowledge base. And when you submit that, it drops it directly into our Curate tab for you. And so I'm not going to click submit because it takes a little bit of time, but we can see here, these are questions about NeuralSeek, which is what our documentation is on, is what we set our company title name to be as well. And in a similar fashion, you're able to manually input questions and submit those, or you can upload test questions. We provide a template right here with this little link for you to upload Q&As, and this is really good for regression testing. If you have some subject matter experts that want to load in some questions about your company and your corporate documentation, this is a really great way to do that as well. So just to summarize, we have set up and launched NeuralSeek, and we've configured it with our knowledge base, and we're ready to begin searching. But this moves us on to module 1.3 of our Learning Lab guide, which is integrating with our virtual agent. So I'm going to take a moment and load up my lab guide here. Perfect. So at this point, pardon me, my nose is a little runny. It is unusually cold for this season, and my nose will not stop running. Okay, so moving on. At this point, we're going to learn to connect our AWS Lex virtual agent in module 1.3 of the Learning Lab guide. So staying within our NeuralSeek UI for a moment, I'm going to click this Integrate tab at the top. And then on the sidebar here, I'm going to go to Lex v2 Lambda. These instructions we're going to walk through. So the first thing that we need to do is get this function over to AWS, so that way we can enable fallback search. So at the very bottom of this page, we have a Lambda archive. I'm going to click that, and it downloads a zip file to my local device. And then while I'm still on this page, I'm going to copy these API keys and instance URLs. You can leave this page open too. We are going to reference them in just a moment, but it's good to copy and have them on hand. And then our next step is navigating back to our AWS console. So we'll go back to here and we will look for our Lambda function within AWS. And then we're going to click this big orange Create a Function tab. And then follow the prompt. So we're going to add a unique function name for this purpose of the lab. I'm just going to go with NeuralSeek Learning Lab. And then the rest of the default settings here are good. So I'm just going to click Create a Function again at the bottom. Perfect. So we've successfully created our function, and I'm going to scroll down just a little bit until I get to this code source pane. And here's where we're going to upload that zip file that we just downloaded from NeuralSeek. So upload from zip file. I'm going to click upload again. It pulls up my file explorer. I'm going to select that Lambda zip and then click save. All right, great. So now that that is imported in, we need to make a few adjustments to this fallback template. So I'm going to go back to that integrate tab within NeuralSeek. If I can. Apologize. I have many tabs open and Zoom. Okay, I apologize. So navigating back to that NeuralSeek page, back on the integrate tab, you would pull that URL and API key. I had copied them earlier, but within this code source pane, that is where we're going to insert those URLs and API keys. So I have my URL in there. And then I have my API key. There is one more edit that we're going to need to make to this page before moving on. So down here in the messages array, I'm going to delete this content type, custom payload, and then content details. We're going to delete this whole thing, comma included, and the 2 curly brackets. We're going to leave that square bracket, however. And so what that function did, but it just will respond with some JSON text showing our parameters, and we just don't need that message content displayed in our virtual agent, which is why we're just going to go ahead and delete that. And we want to check that we have the correct URL, API key. Great. And then finally, we're going to click the deploy button. Right here. And there will be a green bar at the top that confirms our successful connection. And then staying on this page for just one more moment, we're going to head to this configuration tab right above code source. And it's the default setting for the configuration is a very low timeout setting. You can see it right here for 3 seconds. So we're just going to change that to 1 minute for a better timeout. So I clicked that edit button. I'm going to scroll down to timeout. I'm going to change that to 1 minute and 0 seconds. This just ensures that that Lambda function won't time out for a minute. So I'm going to save that. And now we have successfully set up a Lambda function for fallback search. Excuse me. So our next step is going to be to create a Lex bot. So within this AWS console, I'm going to search for Amazon Lex in the top search bar, and then click that option. Great, so now I'm going to click this orange Create Bot. And then in the creation method, we're going to go ahead and select Create a Blank Bot for the purpose of this demo, and then give it a name. Go with NeuralSeek Learning Lab. You can name it Test Bot, whatever you fancy. And then we're not going to add a description. It is optional. For the IAM permissions, we're going to choose to create a role with basic Amazon Lex permissions. And then we're going to select No for the Children Privacy Act. And the idle session timeout here is good, so we're just going to leave that as is, and then click Next. The default language settings here are also good. So at the bottom, I'm just going to scroll down and click Done. Okay, so here we see a new intent, and we need to add at least one intent into the Lex bot. So scrolling down to sample utterances, I'm going to add in an utterance right here at the bottom. It says add utterance. So I'm going to add a random sentence. It can really be anything. I'm just going to go with hello and then click add utterance. And then I'm also going to add a response to that in the initial response section. So any response is suitable. I'm going to add welcome to the test bot. And then at the bottom here, we're just going to click save that intent. And then our next step will be to select a language. So scrolling back up on the sidebar menu here, we're going to go back to our intents list. And then on the sidebar menu, sticking here, we're going to go under deployment, and then there's the aliases. Clicking aliases, it brings us to this page showing this test bot alias. I'm just going to go ahead and click that name to navigate inside. And then scrolling down to the languages section in the middle, I'm going to click English to navigate inside there. And then here is where we're going to set up that Lambda function. So under source, I'm going to click search for NeuralSeek Learning Lab, which is the function that we had just created. The function version should auto-populate, and it will be this $latest. That is all looking good, so I'm going to click Save. Great. So now our language settings are successfully saved, and we can hook up our Lex bot to that fallback intent. So I'm going to go back to the intents page from the sidebar menu and then click for the fallback intent. So sidebar menu under English, and then click intents. And then I'm going to click that fallback intent. I'm going to scroll down a little bit to the fulfillment section. And I'm going to expand it to show more advanced options. It'll pull up another screen here. And the only thing we need to do in this tab is check mark that we want to use that Lambda function for fulfillment. I'm going to go ahead and update that option. And then I'm going to save this intent. At the very top is we have build and test. I'm going to go ahead and click build in the top corner. And this takes a moment, so I'm going to pause for that. And when a green bar appears, it confirms our successfully built bot. I'm just going to grab a sip of water while that loads. Perfect. All right, so now we have that green bar, successfully built bot. On this page as well, we can also click test to go ahead and test our virtual agent, our Lex bot. So this little message pops up, and we can ask it anything that we would expect to be in our connected knowledge base. So for example, I'm just going to go ahead and type in what is NeuralSeek. These three dots here are showing that it's triggered that Lambda function. It's reaching out to NeuralSeek's API and performing that fallback search, and then providing us with our answer. So that is looking good to go. I just want to recap. So we have finished now with module 1. We have success NeuralSeek, configured it with a knowledge base, and we have set up a functional AWS Lexbot with a Lambda fallback function. I can pause here as well for a moment and allow people to ask a few more questions into their Lexbots if they so choose. A few example questions would be, what is NeuralSeek's Explore feature? How is caching utilized in NeuralSeek? What steps does NeuralSeek follow to maintain transparency between sources and answers? All of those are suitable questions to ask. And while we work on that, I'm going to load up our module 2 of the Learning Lab guide, and then we can look at taking a deeper dive into NeuralSeek itself. All right, so I have my module 2 of my lab guide pulled up, and I also have our NeuralSeek instance pulled up as well. So now that we've completed setup, we're going to look at NeuralSeek itself. And the purpose of this module is to highlight some key features within NeuralSeek that are really instrumental in training virtual agents. The reason we name it Scale on our Learning Lab guide is because it matches our UI here at the top. Seek, Curate, Analytics, Logs, and then finally our Explore feature. So loading module 2.1, which is Seek of our Learning Lab guide, we're going to go ahead and get started with that. I'm back in my NeuralSeek instance, and at the very top, I'm going to click my Seek tab. So Seek here is where we can ask questions, and we just see another level of detail than what the chatbot responds with. This is really integral for knowing, what is going on in your knowledge base, what questions users are being asked. If you are receiving a response that is maybe you don't know where that answer is coming from, or it needs some tuning or editing, popping it over here into the Seek tab and being able to see exactly where that answer is coming from, where it's being pulled from, how confident and relevant we believe that answer is. It's all generated within this Seek tab. And it's just really helpful for any sort of regression testing or just testing these user questions. So following the lab guide here, we're going to start out with asking something that's not in our knowledge base. Like I said, our knowledge base is hooked up to some NeuralSeek documentation. So I'm going to ask a silly question, like, what is the formula for pi? Right, so this is an answer that we would pretty much expect because I know that the formula for pi is not in our corporate documentation. It's showing a low semantic match score because there's no data in our knowledge base for what the formula for pi is. And the reason it's 2 and not 0 is because it might be pulling a few words from the question, but overall we know that that is a very low score, and we are not confident, and there's not a lot of coverage in our documentation about it. But we can like expand these. We're seeing exactly where it's being pulled from, where these different keywords, that's why it's being triggered with our documentation, are being pulled from. But, you know, overall, this was pretty expected for this answer. So instead, you know, we can effectively say that this answer is a bit of a hallucination. So instead, I want to go ahead and ask something that I would know would have a higher confidence because it is within our corporate documentation. And a good example of that is simply what is NeuralSeek's Seek feature or NeuralSeek's Explore feature, or you know, a question that I know is relevant. So I would expect this to have a reasonably high confidence score. And looking at that, we do. It's at 40% with an 80% coverage-based score. Just for your reference, anything over about a 20% confidence score we consider pretty reasonable. It's hard to get a 100% semantic match score. I'm sorry, I was talking about the semantic match score, not the confidence score. Looking at semantic matching, it's at 60%. That's a very good, very reasonable score. Anything between 10, 20 over that, we consider reasonable and good because it's hard to get that 100% semantic match score. And I'll show you an example of where there is 100% semantic match, especially with cached answers. But, you know, this is the variation in the score is due to, you know, the variance in language generation as well. But here we have a very respectable score. We have good knowledge-based confidence and good knowledge-based coverage. And scrolling down, we can see exactly where in our documentation this answer is being pulled from. I have my answer provenance turned on. This allows for that color highlighting. It's showing me it matches the colors here, so it's showing me exactly what parts of my answer were pulled where within my documentation. And we have some other like unique features up here, filtering, personalizing. I can add a unique user ID if I want to go back and find this same intent later. I can thumbs up or thumbs down, add some answer training, as well. And then I can just expand these and see. So I know within our documentation, main features, user interface, it starts talking about our Seek tab. So that's exactly where that was pulled from. And that is pretty expected. And all of this information that we provide to you, it just really allows you to trust the answers a bit more than if it was just a simple generated answer from the chatbot itself. Following the lab guide, again, we're gonna finally ask a bit of a more nuanced question. And the one that we have provided in the lab is, why should I use NeuralSeek with a knowledge base instead of just ChatGPT? So I'm just gonna go ahead and pop that question in here so we can see what answer generation would look like for a more nuanced question. All right, so these highlights here, excuse me, I had a tickle in my throat. So we have a semantic match score of 31%, and we give a reasonable answer. We can see a lot more coloring here for our answer provenance, meaning different parts were pulled from different locations within our knowledge base. All of these details as well, there's expanded information about it in our lab guide as well as our documentation if you're more interested in learning about that. But I can pause here for a second. I'm going to put a tissue to my runny nose, and then if you choose to ask a few more questions, we have some examples listed in the lab guide. For example, how does NeuralSeek protect private information? But I'm going to pause and allow for some more question and answer generation before moving on to module 2.2, which is the Curate tab. Okay. I'm pulling up 2.2 of my lab guide, if you are following along as well. So as much as the Seek tab is important, the Curate tab offers just as much crucial information for us to look at as well. So as users are asking questions to NeuralSeek, their questions, as well as the generated answer, they appear here in NeuralSeek's Curate section. So questions are automatically grouped into recommended intents, and we can see these intent categories listed here. And I have a few intents going on because I had asked a few questions. The more questions you ask, the more information that this screen will have. So questions and answer pairs, they might exist in multiple proposed intents of different specificities. So it is up to you to choose which specificity level is best for your use case. But there's lots of features that are available on this page. It gives a great high-level overview of our confidence and coverage scores. So looking at a low coverage score example, was that formula for pi question that we asked. I'm just going to click that drop-down arrow to expand it a little bit. And like I said, so our knowledge base didn't have any information about what is the formula for pi. So here in the Curate tab, it generated all of these proposed questions of like more example questions that would be within the same intent. Other ways that users might phrase what is the formula for pi? Like, can you please tell me the formula for pi? Do you know what it is? And these are all linking back to this generated answer. And the reason we have a low confidence score and a bit of a low coverage score is because there's not information relevant in our source documentation. So we're not all that confident with the answer that we're giving you there. But if we want to improve this area of our documentation, we certainly can. So, if we want to improve our answer, the best recommendation is to update our documentation. Updating it with the formula for pi would give us a much better, much more confident answer with more coverage from our knowledge base. So utilizing, I know the formula for pi might be a bit of a silly example, but based on your corporate data and your use case, this is actually a very helpful feature for knowing where sources in your documentation are outdated, what might need updating, what answers could use tweaking, what answers were really great, and like what kind of questions users are asking about our knowledge base. So looking at a high coverage, we have that NeuralSeek example that we asked, which was, what is NeuralSeek, or tell me about NeuralSeek's features. So since our documentation is on NeuralSeek, we're showing a high coverage and a high confidence score, meaning that if any of these questions are asked based on this intent, this is the answer that's generated, and we're confident, and we know where it's coming from within our knowledge base, so that we would consider, a very good generated answer. Within the Curate tab, caching is another feature that we can talk about while we're here, but we will need to head over to the Configure tab for just a moment. So if we click on Show some more advanced options, I'm just going to quickly go through caching as I check the time here. But this intent matching and cache configuration option, it lets you select how strict you want to be with matching intents here. Using this feature, we're able to, exact match. We offer many different options here for strictness of our intent matching, and this is especially helpful if you have edited answers that you want users to hit more. So we have these sliding scales down here as well. And if for edited answer cache, if we set that sliding scale to 1, we will only ever hit that one edited answer. The normal answer cache, we set as a default of 5, but based on your use case, you can set it as low as 1 as well. So in a virtual agent scenario, if I ask the same question 3 times in a row as a human, I might not answer that with the exact same phrasing each time. And maybe I need the question rephrased better so that way I can better answer it. So with the normal cache or the normal answer cache at 5, we're saying that if the same question is asked multiple times, we'll generate up to 5 variations of that answer and then stop generation and then just rotate through those 5. So setting it to 1 is saying that when the user asks that question, we cache it and then we give you that same answer every single time. So we're able to play around with these functions a little bit. You would just click save at the bottom and then go back over to seek and explore or seek and curate and see how those parameters are changing the answers that you're getting. The last thing I want to show you within Curate is how to edit an answer. Simply click the intent and the answer over here. You just click on it and you're able to edit. This one doesn't need quite a bit of editing, so but when you click save, it shows you right here that that's an edited answer as well, another unique feature. So finally, some other things that you can do on this tab before we move on to other things is importing and exporting. So back on the home tab, if we remember those auto generate questions right here, that manually runs through those queries as if they were asked individually in the Seek tab and then populates them and all of that data into our Curate tab to be able to quickly bootstrap your virtual agent. And then if you want to select these intents, you would just click on that checkmark icon. I apologize, check on that checkmark icon. And then we're basically saying, this intent is good, this intent is good. I like the answers on these, and I want to export them as a starting file for my AWS Lex bot. So by clicking that export button at the top, it downloads that zip file of these intents that I wanted, and then I would just go into Lex and import them. And then I have those intents automatically built for us, but still allowing for that fallback search if we don't match an intent. It hits that fallback intent in Lex and then hits that language generation in NeuralSeek. And this helps reduce a lot of costs by being able to automatically update these and upload these intents. The import base option is very similar, just a little bit backwards. So you would just import a base file from Lex back into NeuralSeek, and then it lets you already know what's in your base file. So you're able to update anything, override, delete certain intents, all of those good features to help bootstrap that virtual agent. When you select an intent as well, a few more of these options pop up, like editing category, generating conversation flag. Download to CSV is a very useful one. It's helpful for regression testing purposes. So you want to download that CSV file, pass it off to a subject matter expert. They will properly review it and edit it, and then we're just able to load that back in to Curate and have, edited content and intents that have been properly reviewed by a subject matter expert, for better answer generation as well. And that's pretty much all I wanted to cover here within that Curate tab. Of course, there's always more to explore, but moving on to module 2.3, we're going to look at analytics. Both analytics and log won't take us quite a bit of time. Pardon me, my nose, just because, we haven't been playing around with this instance for all that long, so there's not too much content for it to go ahead and look at, but these features allow for a good high-level overview of, what is going on with questions in our knowledge base, and it's very useful, especially for subject matter experts to review as well. So users are able to work backwards from this analytics tab to see and understand where confidence and coverage scores are coming from. Basically, like I said, it gives a high-level overview of how well we're answering questions and how much our documentation is supporting those questions. Since we were just provisioning everything today, our look back period won't go back too far. You are able to go back up to 30 days, but showing here, these were our intents. If I highlight them, it gives us a bit of a better navigation. If I click on it, it navigates us right back to that specific intent within our Curate tab. Because once that Curate tab gets full and you have pages and pages of intents, you don't want to spend time scrolling and searching when you can just come to analytics and say, oh, our formula for pi, our coverage is pretty low. Our confidence is low as well. I want to go check out, some answers and questions that are going on with that intent in the Curate tab, but I don't want to scroll. You click right there on analytics and it brings you very easily right into the Curate tab for that intent. So like I said, this gives you a good high-level overview of what is going on. This summary you can also expand, and it shows you it gives you a basic summary of what's going on, as well as some recommendations for areas of improvement in your documentation based on what questions are being asked and what answers are being generated as well. So this is very good for review. The logs tab, moving on to module 2.4 of our lab guide, the logs tab is very similar. So this feature allows users to efficiently filter their log history by date, session ID, question, answer. It allows for a more streamlined and informative experience. So it's a little scarce right now just because we're performing all of this today, but it does give you a good look at what's going on in your virtual agent. So anytime there is language generation, it will be noted here in the logs. And something I do want to call out before moving on is over in our configure tab, we do offer corporate logging as well. And that can be enabled with a Elasticsearch endpoint and Elasticsearch API key. So we will log everything, including configuration, edits, curation, etc. And that is an option that is available as well, but it's just within our configure tab. And it will all display here in our logs tab as well. And over on the side, we can click that little search magnifying glass icon, search for keywords, dates, session IDs, anything that I really want to know what's going on with user questions and answers. So since we had asked for pi, if I just search for formula, it will pull up that intent of what had been asked about the formula for pi. So keywords work as well within that search bar. But the final feature, which is a wonderful feature to explore, really a lot going on here, is our explore feature. So this is the final feature that we'll be going over today. It's very exciting and it has a lot of capabilities ranging from very simple to very complex. And if you're familiar with large language model prompting, then this is essentially a playground just for that. So I clicked that explore feature right at the top. I have module 2.5 of my Learning Lab guide pulled up, and we will just dive right in. This first screen, if you happen to go away from it by accident, you can reload it there by clicking that load tab button at the bottom. And it pulls up some options. So we have our example templates and then our user templates within Explore. Example templates is great because if you're not really sure where to begin here, or you want to see a high-level overview of all the capabilities of Explore, then this is a great feature to start with and play around. The user templates is where your created templates, your created and saved custom templates are saved and stored here within the user templates button. And it can just be pulled up for future use, making it really effective if you have built out some complex cases for your own specific use case and you want to save that and use it for future use. It can always be there within user templates to be easily called upon. But we're going to search for our example templates first. And the first one that we're going to look at is create a marketing email template. I'm just going to be following our lab guide here as well for reference. So this prospecting email, that's the one I'm going to click on. And our template automatically pops up right here in our editors. I'm going to explain the editors a little bit. We offer a visual editor and the NTL editor. The visual one's great. It's what most people work with because it has these boxes that are very easy to see and navigate and explore. Our NeuralSeek template language editor offers the same thing. So as soon as I load a template in, it will be available in both editor formats. This is just written in our NeuralSeek template language. I'm going to move back. I'm mostly going to work within the visual editor here, just for ease of navigation. So there's a few different blocks that are pulled up within this template, and we can see them all here. Our first block is a text prompt. If I click on it, it opens up to the side a bit more of the parameters, and all of them come with their own distinct parameters, so we can investigate those as well. But our text block here, just in natural language, I prompted the LLM with write a marketing email based on this list. And so our next step is we're going to have this chained steps. Ultimately, there are 3 steps within this prompt, this template, 1, 2, 3. But the second step here is chained, a unique feature that NeuralSeek's Explorer also offers. So we'll start out with this get data prompt, which is the website text. It was pulled from right over here within get data. And when we click on it, we'll reach out to a URL, scrape all of that text off of it, and then pipe that through our next function, which is the summarize feature. When I click on it, it expands some more parameters. So this is we're basically giving a parameter of 1500 characters in lengths. So it'll take everything that came back from this website URL that we added, summarize it down to 1500 characters in length, and then our last element of this chain is to send that to the LLM. And here we have also prompted to create a bulleted list of features based on this document. So this LLM right here on the right, it only sees the output of what is going on in this horizontal chain. The web scrape, the summarization of that web scrape, we're sending that summarized web scrape to the LLM, and then outputting a bulleted list of features based on the summarized document of the website that we gave. And this is getting a little convoluted, but at the end, our final step is we're going to send all of this previous content to the large language model in order to generate our output. It's going to hit this prompt, writing that marketing email. It's going to grab that bulleted list of features that we prompted the LLM to do based on the summary from this website that we're going to give. And then it's going to just output our response here in this output format. When I click evaluate, it'll prompt me for that URL, that explore parameter. I hadn't set it in the box. I am able to set it in the box if I choose, or in the NTL editor. But if I leave it blank and I click evaluate, Explorer will let me know, hey, you forgot this URL parameter, input it now. So I'm going to go with the our documentation link to our Explorer feature, because that's what I would want to write this marketing email based on. But what is really great is if you want to continue to play around with this, a tip that we have is that if you grab URLs from a Wikipedia page, whether it's an interesting URL, a silly Wikipedia page, or something that's relevant to your field of work, Wikipedia is a great text-based platform to utilize when playing around with this Explore feature. So that's my helpful hint for the day. So I'm going to input that URL and click evaluate, and then I'm going to watch this output generate. So what's going on right now, well, I'll take us back through, but here is that marketing email. Starts out with our subject. It gives us a dear template, and then it is showing us an email that it had written based on our Explore feature. It had used the website that we took, that summary, it used that bulleted list that it created and output this. When I click this little debug or explore inspector button at the top, I can also walk us through, it walks us through step by step of what just happened. So within the step inspector, we can see step one was our text. We had input, write that marketing email. The second one, we can see the website. So this was the URL that we provided, and this is all, the website information and text that it had pulled and scraped from that. And then this little chain, we can see, it's telling us that it was step 3 was chained to step 2. And this is that summary that it provided based on what it pulled from that website text. Step 4 was that LLM where we had prompted it to create a bulleted list. And while we didn't see that bulleted list within the generated output, it did happen. It was there because we prompted the LLM to do it. So we can review that list it created right here within this Explore Inspector. And then finally, clicking our last step, which was when we sent everything to the large language model, this is that final generated output. So being able to inspect each step within this Explore Inspector, it really lets us know what exactly is going on, what the LLM is providing with us based on what we've prompted it with, and any areas where we can improve. So I'm going to close out of that. And one more feature that I want to talk about with this is down here at the bottom. It shows us the generated characters amount and then a semantic match score. So that 2% semantic match might seem scary, but I just want to let you know that the reason it is a low semantic match score is because we're not pulling from our knowledge base right now. We're pulling from that web scrape. So if I open up details, it kind of gives us a bit more overview of what's going on. That semantic match score, that semantic analysis, as well as some coverage scores and some unattributed key terms and terms as well. So if you notice that feature down there, you're able to expand some more semantic scoring details at your leisure. I'm going to go ahead and click close. And then we're going to look at one more template before we conclude today's session. So I'm going to click clear down here at the bottom, and it clears both editors for me. And then I'm going to click load. I'm going to add one more example template. This is going to be a little bit different, but it has some key features that I want to note. So I'm sorry, I went too fast, but we want this write a memo to a staff template. So just by clicking that, it automatically populates those boxes right into my visual editor. And just like before, that text prompt, natural language, we're prompting that language model to write a memo to our staff discussing some capabilities. What's different here is that we're not pulling from that website text. We're actually going to be pulling from our connected knowledge-based documentation. This KB search is this KB documentation block. And when we open and expand up some of these parameters, right here within the knowledge-based search box, we can, with keywords, let our knowledge base know what we're looking for, what to look for in our knowledge base. So that way we can properly write this memo to our staff discussing the following. The following is going to be, say, our explore feature. So I'm just going to go ahead and type explore in there, and it'll save that. And then, like before, we just want to send all of this information to the large language model. If I didn't include this, it would still generate. I can show you actually. But it's not hitting that language model. So instead, it's just not building that text prompt like how we had wanted it to. It's just parsing explore in our knowledge base. So it's important to remember to send that to the large language model for best answer generation. Give me my nose. All right, so when I click to evaluate at the bottom, I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to review this output. And it's showing memo, it gives a good template, and then it walks through a list I had created on where it had found Explore within our documentation, and wrote a memo to our staff discussing those capabilities. I'll open up that inspector again so we can see exactly what's going on. So step 1 was our text. Step 2 was that knowledge base query. So this is where it is pulling those snippets within our documentation of where it had found that keyword of explore. And then step 3 is showing that it was all sent to the large language model, and this is that generated output. Personally, it's a bit lengthy for a memo to staff. So our next step following the Learning Lab guides would actually be to modify this a little bit. Very easy to do. Any of these buttons are point and click, which is a very great, unique capability within the Explore features. So we offer lots of different database connections, and we also offer this REST API. So if you have a different API, like a third-party one that's not connected within our documentation, you're able to connect to that data as well. Very easily. We offer some guardrails, different variables, but I'm going to click this send to LLM and populate a second one. And just with a point and click, automatically brings up that block for me. And when I click and drag this block, that blue little circle that pops up allows me to chain it wherever I would like. I'm going to chain it to this send to LLM. And like I said, because this memo is a bit long, maybe I want to condense this memo to 2 paragraphs. And then I will click evaluate. And I have these 2 LLMs here chained. So what's going to happen first is the large language model is going to get hit with that text prompt, get hit with that explore prompt, and then write that memo for us, and then go back and condense it all into 2 paragraphs like we had prompted the second time. And just to see that debug, it's the same thing. We chose that knowledge base. These are all the little snippets that pulled from that keyword we prompted it with. And this was the first large language model prompt and answer that it generated. And then we have our chained one with our second condense this memo to 2 paragraphs prompt. So we honestly could spend an endless amount of time playing around with Explore. I did want to show you the ease of the example templates, some different ways we're able to access that documentation, whether it is through KB search, whether it's through uploading your own document, calling an API, or entering just a simple URL, and then its chaining abilities. A unique and very helpful feature with an Explore too. But I will conclude that today because this is the end of our Learning Lab guide. So I appreciate your time with me as we walked through some of the services of integrating within an AWS environment, as well as the different features within Explore. And I really hope you found this session informative and useful. And as a note, please remember to review the closing steps that are available at the end of our lab guide for how to deprovision these instances that were created today, as to not incur further billing. But I will close out of my screen, and if there are any further questions in the chat, me and RJ would be happy to answer them for you.
Well, perfect, team. I think that was what everyone say. A good thank you to Jordan. We appreciate you walking through the Learning Lab. After, we will send out a recording of the Learning Lab with a link to the URL so that you can follow along with the step-by-step guide. And if nobody has any questions, we will connect with you all later. Thank you so much.